So this theory video is about the creative process, or specifically how to create and nurture great ideas. And there are lots of people who say that creativity can't be taught, that it's just a natural thing, people either have it or they don't. And to some reason that may be true. But like any skill, whether it's athletic ability or an ability to calculate algebraic equations, there are people born with great skill in these things, but you can definitely encourage and nurture those skills. And I think that creativity, like any skill, can be nurtured and encouraged. And as an animator, it is very, very important that you are creative, because ultimately the most important part of being an animator is to give a performance. In other words, to be inventive. So I think it's worth talking about creativity as part of this course, because we need to be creative and we need to be imaginative. Now, there's a really interesting TED lecture, which I highly recommend you watch. TED stands for Technology, Education, Design, and you can see them on YouTube. And if you look for Ken Robinson at TED, you'll find this fascinating lecture on creativity by Ken Robinson, some elements of which I have ruthlessly pillaged for my talk here. But he's a marvelous individual and really talks about the importance of creative thinking in schools. Now, the question arises, where do good ideas come from? Where do we get ideas from? Any creative person is going to get asked this question all the time. It's kind of a silly question, really. How do you get creative ideas? Where do ideas come from? But there is an answer to it, and I think that we can look for inspiration. And this is a picture of Orhan Pamuk, who's a Turkish novelist, who's pictured there with his cat, and he wrote that inspiration is the act of drawing the chair up to the writing table. And I love this because, although it's a little bit trite, in a sense what he's saying is, if you're going to be creative, if you're going to invent, you've actually got to sit down and do it. And I mean, that's an obvious thing to say, but for at least 50% of people, they talk about their ideas and they don't execute them. So the business of actually sitting down and getting on with stuff is at least 50% of the battle. I think Woody Allen said that 50% of genius is showing up, and he's not wrong. The second thing is to surround yourself with talent. This is Chuck Jones, the great animator, director of the Looney Tunes cartoons, incredibly inventive and creative man. And he said that the secret of his success was to surround himself with people more talented than himself. And I think he's absolutely right. You want to be surrounded by brilliant people as far as you can. And growing up in my father's animation studio in London, I very much experienced this. Dad, that's my father there on the right, and he would bring over these animation greats. Here's Art Babbitt, who animated the Mushroom Dance and Fantasia, and here is Grim Natwick, who invented Betty Boop. And I can remember all these old guys at the studios, all these old men, who smelled funny and had American accents. But they were brilliant men, and Dad brought them over really to encourage and nurture the talent at his studio and to pass on their ideas. There's another great TED lecture by this gentleman here, Stephen Johnson, who talks about how great ideas need to mingle. He really talks about the collaborative approach to creativity. Let your great ideas mingle with your friends' great ideas. Or as he puts it in a slightly vulgar way, let great ideas have sex. But there's a lot of truth in that. He also talks about the importance of your ideas being part of a network and getting your brain in the right network. And as he puts it, chance favors the connected mind. I think there's a lot of truth in that. You've got to sit down in front of your computer and just get stuff done, but also being connected to other creative people, being part of a creative team is super important and helpful. Always carry a notebook. I think it's really important to have a notebook with you, to have pencil and paper, to sketch out your ideas, and not to let ideas go to waste. I have tons of old notebooks. This is a book of notes I started back in 1988 when I worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I think it's a really good idea to record ideas that you have and then reread them from time to time. The great Japanese director Akira Kurosawa says that creation is memory. And it took me years to figure that out. But what he means by that is you write down ideas, you come up with ideas, you nurture ideas, and then you reread them. And then you think you're looking through an old notebook and you say, that was a great idea. Why didn't I use that? What can I do with that? And that's what he means. Creation is memory. And record things. These are some of my notebooks from from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And these notebooks, these little notes that I made, actually formed, many of these formed the basis of this course, Animation Apprentice, because I kept all my notes and I kept using them, and I've been refining them, and ultimately they've become this course. And I also fill envelopes with ideas for, I do my cartoon strip, Queen's Counsel, which appears in the London Times. And I have all these envelopes. You can see they're really well worn, and I've had to tape them up. And they're full of ideas, and most of them are rubbish. But if I take one of these folders of ideas and sit on a train, by the end of the train journey, I'll have several usable ideas for the cartoon strip just by poring over old material and coming up with new ideas. And as Kurosawa said, don't read books while you're lying down in bed. And what he meant by this was take notes. If you read a great story, make notes of that. Why is it such a great story? What is it about those characters that's so interesting? What is it about the story structure that works so well? See if you can put that into your own work. And of course, it's okay to steal. It is okay to steal. Everyone steals, but you've got to be very careful about stealing. If you copy Star Wars, that's stealing. If you copy Charlie Chaplin, it's homage. Now, what's the difference between those two? Why is it different? It's only different because Charlie Chaplin died years ago, and Star Wars is still part of contemporary culture. It's too easy to steal from Star Wars. But actually, Star Wars, funny enough, in a way, these are a steal. These two characters are two silent movie stars who made it. They're Laurel and Hardy. They're just reversed. Laurel in the old Laurel and Hardy movies, Stan Laurel is the skinny, stupid, the skinny, intelligent one, and Oliver Hardy is the fat, stupid one. Here they're reversed. He's skinny and stupid, and he's sort of fat one, but he's intelligent. It's kind of a mirror image of Laurel and Hardy, these two characters. So they're borrowing as well. How do you avoid cliche? Cliche is hard to avoid. Highly recommend you read Konstantin Stanislavski's great book, The Actor Prepares. You don't need to read all of it, but read the introduction, read the first couple of chapters. And he says, cliche will fill up every empty spot which is not already solid with living feeling. And what he means by that is that when you're writing something or you're coming up with an idea, the lazy part of your brain always reaches for the cliche. But when you put your own experiences into it and your own responses to things and your own ideas, then it's alive. Then it means something. Then it's not cliche. But you've got to train your brain not to go for the cliche. So you've got to strive for originality, and that means trying to find original ideas, original experiences. Easier said than done. And if in doubt, write what you know. Steal from your own experiences, steal from your childhood. I worked on the great movie The Iron Giant, directed by Brad Bird. And that story is really about Brad's childhood, that he's channeling his own childhood in that movie. Write about your friends, write about your family. These are real experiences. These are things that are full of life. They're living and breathing, and they're not cliched. If you take a real character and turn that into a character somebody and turn that into a caricature or a cartoon character, it's much more interesting. And as Ken Robinson says in his TED Talk, you've got to take risks. If you're not prepared to be wrong, you will never come up with anything original. He talks a lot about how our school system trains us to be right or wrong, and how damaging that is to creativity, because creativity is not about being right and wrong. It's about coming up with original ideas and taking risks. And he also talks about how children take risks. Very small children will take risks, but as they get older, they get told no. That's the wrong answer. That's wrong. You mustn't do that. I would also keep the writing type secret. I would encourage, if you're writing a book or a novel or whatever it is, don't talk about it too much. Just kind of get on with it. And you need to be disciplined about it, and you need to lay time aside every day, even if it's only just half an hour, where you get on with your project. And don't talk about it too much. Douglas Adams, who wrote the wonderful genius who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, said of deadlines that he loved the whooshing sound they make as they fly by, which is brilliant, great genius. And I mean, we've all had that experience, but the fact that you miss deadlines doesn't mean that deadlines aren't important. Just like, like sales managers have sales targets, so creative people have to have deadlines to encourage you to get on with things. and keep trying. As Einstein said, it's not that he's so smart, he just stays with problems longer. I'm not sure how true that is. I think he was pretty smart, but there is wisdom in that. You have to there's a stick to itness that is important with all of this stuff. So in summary, make time for your work. Find your team of like-minded people, people you love to hang out with, other creative people you like to work with. Fill notebooks with ideas. And when you read books, make notes. If you're interested in a story, why did that story work? Try to avoid cliche and linking with that, striving for original feeling and original experiences that are true to you. Take risks. That's part of the same thing, really. And finally, never give up. Anyway, the fact that you're doing this course means that you are getting on with things and you're not giving up. So props to you. And I hope this is a useful introduction to how you can train your mind into habits of creative thought. That's really what this is about. No one can give you great ideas other than you, but you can train your mind to be receptive to great ideas. For me, making notes is the key thing. Notebooks, I have volumes and volumes of them.